Welcome to I Learned a Thing in the Bathroom from Dollar Shave Club, where we explain something very complicated in mere minutes to occupy your brain while you shave. In this edition, we'll be answering the question, why don't we have flying cars yet? As explained by someone who sounds smart because he's British.
The first thing to point out with this question is that we already have flying cars. They're called helicopters, and they're pretty neat.
Come on, you know what we want. The flying car from Blade Runner or Back to the Future 2. Why are we still on the freaking ground like chumps over here?
The flying car concept became popular in the first half of the 20th century during the golden age of motoring. The next step, people thought, was surely the flying automobile. But it's a big mistake to think of future tech as just fancier versions of what we already have. The horse and cart, after all, was replaced by the car, not an upgraded horse and cart that could go 210 miles per hour. So the real question is not, how do we take the cars we have and make them fly, but rather, how do we completely replace the concept of the personal car as we know it?
You make it sound as though people wouldn't want to own a flying car. And that makes you a stupid dum-dum head.
Here's the thing though, a flying car would be an absolute pain in the butt to own. First, there's the cost. Back in 2012, Terrafugia's prototype flying cars, which were really just a light aircraft that could fold its wings to be roadworthy, were projected to cost over $250,000 each. Then there's the weather. Unlike your regular car, a thunderstorm, or even just wind and light rain, would be enough to ground your flying car and make travel impossible. For many people, that makes it unusable for about half the year. And then, of course, there's the DMV.
Wouldn't we finally be free of those monsters if we had flying cars?
Oh my goodness, no. There are currently between 30 and 40,000 fatalities from car crashes every year in the US, and that number would multiply considerably if all our cars flew. The new regulations that would be brought in to keep us all from killing ourselves would be insane. The insurance would be completely unaffordable, and if you thought the current driving test was annoying, the test for flying cars would be an absolute nightmare. The fact is, flying is hard, which is why the Federal Aviation Administration requires people to have 1,500 hours of flying experience before they're considered qualified to be a commercial pilot. That's 62.5 days worth of driving lessons.
Okay, but planes have autopilots. Surely a flying car could drive itself.
It's not quite the same. Autopilots are only used for long periods of sustained flight, while the tricky stuff like takeoff and landing is handled by pilots. It's a bit like cruise control. Fine for the freeway, but absolutely not capable of pulling out of a blind driveway and into rush hour traffic.
But what about driverless cars? Aren't they becoming a thing?
It's true that experts predict we'll see some almost completely autonomous vehicles on the road by the end of the decade. Whether the same principles could be safely applied to a far more complicated flying car is a bigger question. But think about this. If the only way we could get flying cars approved was to hand over all control of driving them to a computer while you sit safely strapped into a harness in the back seat, wouldn't that take all the fun out of having a flying car in the first place?
Too late. You've already done that.
Tune in next time for more I Learned a Thing in the Bathroom. And in the meantime, head to dollarshaveclub.com for more podcasts and a big old pile of grooming products.